Tonight on the Black Channel, did I call it or did I call it? When you have a movement built on nothing but hate and animosity and nothing else, and that's all that powers it and fuels it and justifies it, it'll only be a matter of time before it turns on itself. Been meaning to cover this now for a minute here. Got a lot we're going to cover here tonight, so hang on tight. Nick Fuentes was grilled by his own callers about the Super Bowl. Bad Bunny being there and the halftime show being in Spanish. And Nick Fuentes weighed in on that. So I want to play the remarks. By the way, if you have children around, you're going to, because we're dealing with white supremacist scum, of course, being subhuman is par for the course. So as far as language and stuff, if you have children around, you definitely don't want them here for this part because these are the white supremacist savages shown in their native habitat. But I want you to hear how it went, folks. And basically, his audience took him to task, and it went downhill very, very quickly.
I'd rather not.
Whatever sent $30, even if you enjoyed it. I was hopeful you'd better articulate why a Latin halftime show celebrating their culture was unacceptable for an American sporting event as iconic as the Super Bowl.
I thought you were going to tell me something I already thought. I wanted to hear my opinion reinforced. The Super Bowl is in America. We speak English in America. Good point. Good point. I've heard this opinion 10,000 times this weekend, but I wanted to hear you say it harder. That's why I hate you. That's why I hate you people. I don't like ugly, stupid freaks. I don't like ugly, stupid freaks. Here's why I don't like you people. Because, so the Super Bowl halftime shows in Spanish. Stop the presses. Call the National Guard. Everybody is saying exactly the same thing. It should be in English. The fuck? The country speaks English. The song should be in English. And okay, so we've all heard that. We all sort of agree.
So first of all, he is calling his own audience when he says, I hate you people. He's talking about his own audience. He's talking about the white supremacists, the white nationalists, the white incel, white nationalists here. He's talking about his own audience when he says that. He's not talking about outside the bubble. He's talking about his own people when he says that. Not white folk, white supremacists. He's talking about them. With them saying, hey, we need to be hard line about that. And he's sitting here calling them stupid and berating them about upholding the standard. And of course, some of them are now scratching their heads, and because white supremacists are very slow, the low IQ guys, the high IQ people got taken in by a fraudulent Mexican. The Anglos got taken in. The white supremacist Anglos got suckered in by a fraudulent Mexican. And they're just, when they took him to task for a Spanish-speaking halftime show, now they're shocked and surprised that the Mexican that they've been following all this time as their Anglo leader, he draws the line at Spanish. Yeah, it's only taken them a decade to dope this out. We've been saying this since day one, but it's only taken these clowns a decade to catch up because Neanderthals.
Okay, we all kind of agree. We've all heard that. Everybody tune into the show because they want to hear me say it, though. We all sort of agree. We've all heard that. And you want to tune into the show to hear me say it. The show should be in English. I think the show's in Spanish. That's not English. The show should be in English. And why? Why do you want to? You want to get up on the coffee table? Yeah! The show should be in English.
Now, of course, he could just stop there about the language part of it. He could do that. But remember, we are always the foundation, if you will, for whatever their grievance is, whatever their mental schism is, whatever their problem is. It always, always, always comes back to us. So it seems like he's going on a rant about language there, but nope, it's going to get back to us.
English. I think the show's in Spanish. That's not English. The show should be in English. And why? Why do you want to? You want to get up on the coffee table? Yeah! Yeah! The show should be in English! I mean, like, why? I don't know. It's just so low IQ. I have been doing this for long enough in my life that I'm just sick of, I'm just tired of it. I'm sick of it. You know? You want me to get, so everybody could get up out of their recliner chair? You can get your fat ass up off the chair. Yeah! Whatever. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about any of it? Nigger Ball brought to you by beer and sports gambling. Here's your Goy Ball brought to you by gambling and Miller Lite. Goy Ball. Oh, my nigger just scored a point. Brought to you by... What is the gambling site? Brought to you by Dave Portnoy and DraftKings.
Yeah. For all the numbskulled 25th chromosome individuals who claim that he's not a white supremacist. Nick Fuentes ain't racist. Nick Fuentes ain't racist. Patrick Bet David and Tucker the Sucker Carlson, who gets hoodwinked and backstabbed by somebody seemingly every other week. But yeah, no white supremacist here. No racist here. Why do y'all call him racist? He ain't racist. Yeah, no white supremacist here at all. Nah, not at all.
Goy Ball. Oh, my nigger just scored a point. Brought to you by... What is the gambling site? Brought to you by Dave Portnoy and DraftKings. It should be in English. It's like, I mean, come on already. Come on already. Come on already. Well, it was acceptable last year because it was Kendrick Lamar. The Ebonics was in English. I need my Ebonics to be in English. I need my bubblegum pop garbage. I need my degenerate Jewish pop garbage to be in English when I watch my black people play ball while I gamble my money away for the Jews. Like, okay, really? Like, can we all grow up? Wait a second. This country that's a quarter Mexican now has a Super Bowl in Spanish? What the heck? It's like, okay, I mean...
No. I imagine that all the white supremacists out there raised an eyebrow when they heard that line right there. I mean, that's exactly what your Latino liberals tell you, and liberals defending illegal aliens. That's exactly what they say, isn't it? Now you've got your so-called white nationalists of Mexican descent saying it. So, yes, the short bus rolls down the block very slowly on White Supremacy Boulevard, but you heard him just say, well, I mean, the country's a quarter Spanish Mexican anyway. Okay. All right. Now, he just outright said that. Shouldn't be surprising, especially remember, we've covered this before. Nick Fuentes, when the police showed up at his place.
I'm Mexican. Fuentes. You think you're a white supremacist? I'm not white supremacist. I'm Mexican. Fuentes. I know. I saw that.
Yeah, when he was talking to the police and they said, "You're a white supremacist." I'm not a white supremacist. I'm Mexican. And what do you know, when you came to him to complain about there was too much Spanish influence on the Super Bowl, because this is America, all of a sudden Mr. America First is like, what's the big deal? And he is not the only Latino who is letting you know that it's time for the Anglos to expand the big tent. He's not the only one, but by the way, yeah, they got took. they got took.
Really? Like, can we all grow up? Wait, I need my degenerate Jewish pop garbage to be in English when I watch my black people play ball while I gamble my money away for the Jews. Like, okay, really? Like, can we all grow up? Wait a second. This country that's a quarter Mexican now has a Super Bowl in Spanish? What the heck? It's like, okay, I mean, come on. Come on, guys. I mean, can we grow up a little bit? It's actually crazy. I don't know. It's all just so... I'm above it all. I'm above it all. I'm too smart for this. I'm better than this. And I'm better than you.
No, this little, short, effeminate, subhuman, genetic recessive degenerate. Yeah, no narcissistic complex here whatsoever. The most recessive, inferior person in the room, to the point that it is literally comical, is telling his audience he's better than them. I don't know. Maybe he is. They've been dumb enough to follow him all this time, so maybe he is better than them.
Okay. You want to... Here's my honest to God opinion. If you want to complain about the Super Bowl in Spanish, seriously, go watch Matt Walsh, okay? Go watch Goyim TV, not the based one. Go watch Goy Matt Walsh, who can never talk about the Jews, and watch him shake his fist as an angry white man about how the Super Bowl's in Spanish. You want your sweet release, okay, you cuck? Okay, you fucking white cuck. You want your release? You want an angry white man to say I'm mad as hell that the Super Bowl's in Spanish? Go watch Matt Walsh the Goy and get your release. Okay? That's my honest to God opinion. It's like everything, you know, you're not telling us to vote for Trump. You're not telling us that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. You're not telling us that the Super Bowl halftime show should be in English. Okay, go watch TV for Goyim then. Okay, and yeah, get mad at the Super Bowl, vote Republican, like knock yourself out. If that is what you're interested in, which is reinforcing your opinions, giving a release valve to your outrage about the latest cultural thing, go watch Blaze TV. We don't do that here. We don't play.
Yeah, the way that Nick keeps playing with his nose like that, between him and Marco Rubio, we're going to come back to that, but yeah, the way he keeps playing with his nose, y'all, it's like, yes, are you... Look at his hair. Look at the way he's sitting. Are you sure he didn't do some lines before he got in front of the microphone today? Are you sure he didn't do a few lines before he got in front of the mic? Because he sure as hell is sounding like he done did something here today.
That game here, okay? Politics is what we do here. Politics is what we do. Hot takes is what we do. Humor, comedy. See, I got him laughing. Told you, comedy is what I do. Other stuff, go watch something else.
Okay, so, yeah, I don't know what he's floating on there, but that's that. However, he'd have been good if he had stopped there, but it wasn't because his audience was not done with him yet. His audience wasn't done with him yet, and they wanted to talk about a few things here, so they get him back up here again, and they want to know something. He goes even further this time. That was light there. He goes even further here.
The halftime show was in Spanish and all the performers were brown people. The message was, this is what America looks like, a mosaic of Latin peoples. Clearly it was political. Clearly it was a middle finger to white people. Weird take. Are you even a white nationalist at this point?
What? Oh, man. Somebody in the audience was like, wait a minute, dude. The halftime show was in Spanish. All the performers were brown people. The message was, this is what America looks like, a mosaic of Latin peoples. Clearly, it was political. Clearly, it was a finger to white people. Weird take, Nick. Are you even a white nationalist at this point? So his short bus audience has been following a guy named Fuentes for a decade, a fellow who sat there and told the police that he was not a white supremacist. He's Mexican.
You think you're a white supremacist? I'm not a white supremacist. I'm Mexican. My name's Fuentes. I know, I kind of a white supremacist.
Yeah, that guy. They've been following him all this time, and lo and behold, they are now shocked and flabbergasted and appalled that when they came to him complaining about the Spanish-speaking people at the Super Bowl, that he's not really that upset or triggered about it. They're shocked. And so now in their disbelief, hey, are you even a white nationalist at this point? The fella named Fuentes. This is how brilliant those guys are over there.
The halftime show was in Spanish and all the performers were brown people. The message was this is what America looks like, a mosaic of Latin peoples. Clearly it was political. Clearly it was a middle finger to white people. Weird take. Are you even a white nationalist at this point?
Honestly, I don't feel like one anymore. I feel like, you know, do I want America to be a white country? Yes. I'm pro-white, but the movement has just been captured by losers and idiots. And I don't really, I'm kind of just done pandering. I fucking hate these people.
Damn! So, yeah, there you have it. He just, in no uncertain terms, the movement has been captured by losers and idiots. And I effing hate them. This is his audience, people. He's been the leader here, so this was the best he could create. This is his creation. He's the one who's captured it. It's his creation, and he is beside himself. Because, of course, he can't lead anything. He's never held a real job. He doesn't have any skills other than sitting up here stoking outrage and giving white supremacist porn. And, yeah, so he's letting you know here. It's like, yeah, I'm done with white nationalists. They're losers and idiots. What does that make him? I don't know. But, yeah. Oh, don't worry. I'm going to let the whole thing play here. I'm going to play the whole thing here because he just keeps going and going and going. Didn't leave very much of them left over.
Are you even a white nationalist at this point?
Honestly, I don't feel like one anymore. I feel like, you know, do I want America to be a white country? Yes. I'm pro-white, but the movement has just been captured by losers and idiots. And I don't really, I'm kind of just done pandering. I fucking hate these people. That's how I feel about it. You know, when I look at what the movement has become, like the kind of impulses that have captured it, it's just kind of depressing. And I've always been forward thinking, and I've always been heterodox, and I've always been progressive in a way. And increasingly, I don't feel like I fit in with that anymore.
That's right, folks. You heard him. He just told you that he has always been progressive. What? Oh, man, little Nick don't know what he wants to be now, does he? He doesn't know what he actually wants to be. Okay, my board's messing up here. Nick doesn't know what he actually wants to be. Nick does not know what he actually wants to be. He doesn't know what he wants to be. He doesn't know where he wants to be on the board. He doesn't know what side he wants to be on. And now he's telling you that he's always been progressive. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you've been following him at this point, you've got to feel like the biggest candy-coated dumbass there was. Conservative, white nationalist, and he's sitting here in one video telling you that he's neither. And when he says white, by the way, they haven't had a get-together with each other so that they can all have a definition of, by the way, what is white? What does Nick Fuentes mean when he says white? When Nick Fuentes says that he wants a white nation, have these people actually agreed on what is the definition of white? Because they've been hiding that definition for so long, and they're all using the same word, and they never did get together to have a powwow, pardon the expression over there in white supremacist land, so they could all compare notes to say, by the way, do we have a common definition of what white is? When we use our code words like Western civilization, do we actually have an agreed upon common definition of what, quote, white is when we use that word white? Because as far as I can tell, they're confused.
So no, I don't think I'm like you, because now it's turned into, it used to be the case that if you were against white genocide, if you're pro-white, if you're against immigration, like that is what it meant to be on our side. Now it's like you have to be a Republican culture warrior. I have to be spun up about the Super Bowl halftime show. It's just so low IQ. It's so low IQ. It's so monotonous, so repetitive. You're screaming at the halftime show because it's in Spanish. Okay, I mean, am I supposed to do this performative outrage? Why? I'm supposed to get up out of my seat? Who gives a fuck? So I just don't. No, I don't think I fit in anymore because, I'm telling you this, we've reached a high watermark of that stuff. I've been doing this for 10 years. I was into this before it was popular, before it was mainstream, and now it's filled with a bunch of complete fucking idiots, and it's really just turned into signaling that you're a part of an in-group. And we're all going to have the same take, and we're all going to have the same opinion, and we're all going to say the same thing, and we're all going to engage in this elaborate performance. I don't know who it's for, why. We're all going to perform outrage. We're all going to perform and do the same jokes. And
okay, outrage. Nick, you are the leader of it. You're the guy. He was literally cheering on Charlottesville, the white supremacists there, literally on January 6th, trying to lead an uprising. You want to talk about performative? By the way, yeah, he was on the bullhorn. Now, they put Enrique Tarrio in prison, and he wasn't even in Washington on January 6th. Nick Fuentes was there with the bullhorn, riling people up, and never got arrested. You're the guy leading this thing right here, and now he's complaining about it. Once again, to the high IQ Neanderthals on the short bus. I would say all hands up who didn't see this coming, but all the Neanderthals on the short bus did not realize that this is what it was. This is what it is, and this is what it was. And he's got to sit up here all this time later and just tell them, yeah, we did the bait and switch on you there. It wasn't very hard because you guys aren't very bright over there. And so now he's progressive and don't need white nationalism, and he's above all that, and we got bigger fish to fry. Okay. He doesn't like where the movement is going, even though he's leading it. These are his foot soldiers telling him, hey, Nick, these are core tenets here of whiteness. And Nick is like, you guys are weird. You guys are weird. Okay. Boy, they sure did invest a lot into him, though, didn't they? I mean, they invested a lot. If you didn't know better, you'd swear. Now, hearing this, it starts to sound like white supremacist grifter. It's given white supremacist scammer is what it's given. It's given that.
All going to have the same talking points. And I don't know. It's no longer interesting to me. It's no longer interesting. It's not funny anymore. It's not edgy. It's really just become a drag. At one point, we were the trolls, and now we're the butthurt ones. There was a point in time when we were having fun, and we were laughing, and we were trolling, and we were making jokes. And now our side are the biggest butthurt faggots of all time. You know, the far right has become the biggest butthurt faggots ever. Everybody's mad all the time. You can't make jokes. Everyone's moral fagging about everything. Purity spiraling. And people are, at the end of the day, people don't.
Purity spiraling. By definition, Nick Fuentes' sick, demented, white supremacist satanic movement is based on purity testing. Everything is based against are you white and purity testing. That's the whole basis of white supremacy. That's the whole basis of their ideology, their identity, their movement is purity testing. Now he's decried white nationalism. He's decried MAGA. He's decried conservatism. You need to be progressive. Now he's decrying purity testing. I mean, all the core tenets of white supremacy he is attacking simultaneously at the same time during this rant. Everything that he's led these people to and everything that they allegedly stood for, and he is nuking it right here. Every individual point he's going at. So now you no longer need to be purity testing anymore because you may get caught up and start purity, quote, spiraling. No, now you're purity spiraling. What's the difference between purity testing and purity spiraling? Whatever Nick tells you it is at that time. All right. Forget it, man. They're done. They're toast. They're done.
Even really have a vision for what the country should be.
Like you do. They don't have a vision for what the country should be. Like you do. Like you have any clear, concrete, measurable, quantitative, qualitative idea of what it's supposed to be. So, yeah.
And people are, at the end of the day, people don't even really have a vision for what the country should be. I mean, half the people complaining about the halftime show aren't even white nationalists. They don't even know what the fuck they are. They just have these grievances. They don't care if America... Do you think Megyn Kelly gives a shit if America's white or not? Megyn Kelly is bitching about it. Like, you think Megyn Kelly is based? Megyn Kelly's screaming, the Super Bowl should be unifying. It should be in English. You think Megyn Kelly's a white nationalist? She isn't. She's just pandering to, like, I don't know, this, like, really bitter, like, white resentment politics. And I've always said this. I want to imagine a better future. I'm actually a progressive. And this kind of like Oliver Anthony, Matt Walsh, like knuckle dragging, like bitter ass face thing. We're all going to be grumpy and mad. I've never been on board with that. I've always seen it as defeatist and fucking pathetic and basically just this big loser mentality. So, yeah, you know, the halftime show was in Spanish. Oh, I didn't know that. You're telling me for the first time. It's like, okay. The message was America is full of Latin people. Well, you know, it is. So, I mean, are we going to, or do we live in reality? The message is America's full of Mexicans. Okay, America is like a quarter Hispanic. So, like, I don't know, like, get real.
If you are an Anglo white supremacist who's been following him now for the last decade, oh, you got to feel bad today. How do you defend that? How do you sit up here and criticize ICE or whatever, or support ICE, and yet here's your man. Here's your mans. It's your main mans right here talking about, so what? The country's a quarter Mexican. And if they speak in, folks, what I'm saying is understand this. Along with that goes, if we're going to throw the Super Bowl halftime show being in Spanish out the window, what his audience understands is that one of their core tenets is that this is America. When I call customer service, I shouldn't have to press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish. What? Now, that has been one of the core concrete tenets of their movement now for decades. That this is America, and when I call someplace, I shouldn't be getting a prompt asking me if I want to talk to somebody in Spanish. Well, press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish. Whoa, we can't do that. Well, why not? Because that means that we're not dominant. If Spanish is going to be on the same level as English, then by virtue of that, well, English is obviously not dominant. So, no. That Spanish thing is an offense and an affront. So if you're going to defend Spanish at the halftime show, now you have to back off having a problem with press 2 for Spanish. You're going to have to back off of that. So in for a penny, in for a pound. I wonder if his audience is ready to accept that. I don't think they are. If you all agree, give me the telephone emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. It's 4,000 people in here live right now. But if you agree with me, give me the telephone emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button for me.
It was clearly a middle finger to white people. I didn't really feel like that at all. It just, that message wasn't really there. But you see what you want to see, and you can go on fucking Oliver Anthony Island and be, seething about it. But yeah, this whole halftime show, all these various events over the past 6 months, it's just like, get me out of here. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. Charlie Kirk was a time traveler. Hands off Venezuela. Hands off Greenland. I support ICE, but they're being too mean. The Super Bowl's in Spanish. It's like, excuse me, this is not something that I fuck with at all. Lunatics are running the asylum. People that 9 months ago were woke are now telling us what's based. I don't know. I'm not a part of it.
Anon 83.
So as you all can tell here, the entire movement is falling apart, as I predicted that it would from day one. I told everyone the best thing that can happen would be Donald Trump being reelected, because the white supremacists would finally have power. But because they are such a degenerate group of wicked, evil malcontents, the only thing they could do if they were put in power is basically start shooting at each other. The best thing that could happen was we get out of the way and let them feel that they have won. And once they have, quote, won, once they get in power, they would not just stop and say it's time for us to fix things. They would, because their movement isn't built on fixing anything. It's built on oppressing others. And if you have been defeated, then they will then turn their guns on one another, which is what they have done from day one. And then they decided they were going to have an expendable, most extreme foot soldier. They elevated Nick Fuentes, and I told you all from the beginning what was going to happen. Just as soon as Candace the Dunce Owens sat up here and marched him out on her show, I told everybody then, go back and check the archive here on YouTube on my channel. Go back and check that when I told you Nick Fuentes does not want to make nice with any of the old guard, either because he's a Fed or because he's fed up. So I said that he realizes that there's more power to be gained by fighting the conservative cheerleaders than in joining forces with them. There's more power to be had by telling people that he's the real right-wing white supremacist conservative. Much more power to be gained fighting Candace Owens than there is working with her. Just like there was more power for him to be had fighting Charlie Kirk than there was working with him. More power to be gained fighting Tucker Carlson than there is working with him. Now he has deteriorated to the point there's more power to be had fighting Trump. Hell, now there's more power to be had fighting the Groypers. Megyn Kelly, who hasn't said anything bad about him whatsoever, he's attacking her. Well, yes, he's going after all of you, which is exactly what I said would occur if you promoted him. If you elevate him, he's actually not going to play nice with you. He is going to go after all of you. He's going to use that newfound elevation and promotion into going after all of his so-called fellow white supremacists. He's going to go after you. I said that almost a year ago, I believe, when he went on Candace Owens. Yeah, I said that then. And how has it come to pass? Literally everybody who was singing his praises and thinking that they were going to make American Nazism mainstream because they were all wannabe Nazis. Tucker Carlson, Ian Carroll, Piers Morgan. Well, Piers Morgan at least fought back when he was there, but Piers be funny style white supremacists a lot of the time. Also, they all thought that they were going to elevate this man. They thought that he would be Trump has moved the Overton window. They keep squawking on about he's moved it enough that we can get Fuentes stuffed and fit through that Overton window now. And I'm like, no, Nick Fuentes doesn't want to stuff through the window. He wants to throw all of you out the back door, which is exactly what I said from the very beginning. I said it from the beginning. And now it's come to pass. Now, all the folks who supported him and elevated him and got him where he is, and now that he's here, he's letting you know that everything that you all were in favor of, he is against. Everything you were promoting, he is now against. And it should have been predictable. Well, folks are not liking the program very much here tonight, so I guess I'm upsetting a lot of people because you got a lot of folks out there. I like Nick Fuentes. You wrong about that, Jason. I mean, y'all do be acting like niggas sometimes. No, not y'all. We be acting like niggas sometimes. You know, I saw it on Fresh and Fit. We do be acting like niggas sometimes, Jason. I can't be upset with you. You be saying niggas. Nick, if you can say it, Nick Fuentes can say it. So we do be acting like niggas sometimes. So I'm offending some people over here because low key I like nigga. He be saying some good things sometimes. The Candace Owens audience that tunes in to me. I mean, Nick, he kind of rub me. He be saying some stuff that's true sometimes. So, yeah, that. All right, well, let me go ahead and take a very brief non-commercial break here then, and probably see about, I had some other things we were going to go into here tonight, but may have to take an opportunity to go ahead and do something a little bit different here. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone who's contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out to Karen. Thank you very much for your support tonight. We appreciate that. As always, Cyberdyne100. Snatchadams, thank you very much for your support here as well. Willis, Liz, Ismani, Miss Kitty Catty MC, thank you very much for your support here as well. Let's go ahead and see if we can take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. And for everybody else here who's contributed tonight, thank you very much for your support here. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back here, I'll see what we're going to do. This is the Black Channel.
Be the teacher, knowledge on the block. Got the kids learning, minds open like a lock. Books and skills from the east to the west. Bringing education, yeah, we're simply the best. Classes on fire, brains burning with desire. Innovation driving like a tire through the mire. Math, science, history, we got the whole range. Kids hitting new heights, teachers making a change. Used to be the teacher, stacking up the grades. Future bright shining, no need for no shades. Got the youth thriving, moving up the ladder. Smart and sharp, brains growing fatter. Lessons so lit, yeah, they stay in a blaze. Every mind sharp like a sword in the haze. Mr. B in the house breaking knowledge chains. Education kingpin, we repping the gains. Used to be the teacher.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening for a couple more minutes here. I'm offending a lot of people here tonight. I'm very, very good at that. So I'll go ahead and keep continuing that here for just a few more moments here before I get off their necks here. Because there was something else I wanted to cover here as well. What you're watching, what we're witnessing is a realignment, and it is my job as the anchorman of the New Black Media to make sure that I document these things so that you all have the proper cataloging of the steps along the way of what you're actually seeing, not what you think you're seeing, but with the documentation that shows you in real time where it is going, because analysis is key. There was a get-together here. There was a get-together here. About a week ago here, Marco Rubio. And he wanted to go and address the European powers, and he gave a speech. He gave a speech. It's a little over 3.5 minutes long. But I want you to hear what he had to say because I think this is pivotal and key. It answers and addresses so much. It touches on so much of what I've been teaching you all here going on 2 decades. And I want you to hear for yourselves what he had to say here just a little over a week ago.
Recently outsourced our sovereignty to international institutions while many nations invested in massive welfare states at the cost of maintaining the ability to defend themselves. This, even as other countries have invested in the most rapid military buildup in all of human history and have not hesitated to use hard power to pursue their own interests. To appease a climate cult, we have imposed energy policies on ourselves that are impoverishing our people, even as our competitors exploit oil and coal and natural gas and anything else, not just to power their economies, but to use as leverage against our own. And in a pursuit of a world without borders, we opened our doors to an unprecedented wave of mass migration that threatens the cohesion of our societies, the continuity of our culture, and the future of our people. We made these mistakes together. And now, together, we owe it to our people to face those facts and to move forward, to rebuild. Under President Trump, the United States of America will once again take on the task of renewal and restoration, driven by a vision of a future as proud, as sovereign, and as vital as our civilization's past. And while we are prepared, if necessary, to do this alone, it is our preference and it is our hope to do this together with you, our friends here in Europe. For the United States and Europe, we belong together. America was founded 250 years ago, but the roots began here on this continent long before.
Well, now you have a sitting Secretary of State openly acknowledging something that I have been saying to you now going on 2 decades. When I said it back then, the internet tends to be slow and very remedial and intellectually regressive. But if you'll remember, I told you all that at the beginning of the 20th century, Spanish-speaking people in America were classified as white. It is only once we get to the 1970s that they were declassified as white. However, before then, they were classified as white. And there was no argument when Cortez or any of the other Spaniards came over. There was no argument back then. Well, what was the core of it then? And I told you what the core of it was. They came from Europe, so they share a common geography, a common phenotype, a common religion, a common social structure. The only thing that really separates them is the language. The only thing that truly separates them is the language. But when you take a look at the so-called facets of the culture, well, they are absolutely parallel, which is what I've been saying to you now, going on 2 decades. They have much, much more in common than they do in difference, and the differences are only nuanced. Now, I've been saying that since I cranked up this microphone from day one. There were a lot of folks who didn't want to believe that because when I first started doing this almost 2 decades ago, we still had a bunch of Negroes out there talking about, Mexicans is black.
What?
That's what they were saying to us then, remember? Remember back then, you had folks telling us Mexicans were white, Mexicans were black. They really know they black, didn't. That's what's wrong right there, Jaden. You need to check your history. They really know their history, Jaden. They know they black folk. Yeah, you can't find those people today now, can you? But they were trying to hang in there strong 2 decades ago. Now that they've been made asses multiple times over, they're not doing that anymore. But we were saying this going on 2 decades ago, back when a whole bunch of other folk were trying to play if they ain't Anglo, they know they black. You wrong. You behind. They know they black. Now, the truth is coming out about this, and Marco Rubio is substantiating it with exactly what I said decades ago. That is beyond just whether or not you think they're Caucasian. Take a look at the social structure. Take a look at the religion. Take a look at the cultural norms. Take a look at what they pattern themselves after. And then you see, oh, wait a minute, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Together. America was founded 250 years ago. But the roots began here on this continent long before. The men who settled and built the nation of my birth arrived on our shores carrying the memories and the traditions and the Christian faith of their ancestors as a sacred inheritance, an unbreakable link between the old world and the new.
Okay, I got to stop it right there. Now, you just heard that with your own ears. you can't deny what you just heard. What I told you, for those of you who've been following me since day one, did I call it or did I call it? He is confirming what I have said when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, and I had morons, idiots, and jackasses telling me about Jason. He ain't gonna win Florida. The Cubans and the Latinos, they knows they black peoples. He ain't gonna get them. And I said, excuse me. In their culture, they respect the Anglo strongman. As a matter of fact, they admire and revere the Anglo strongman. You're obviously either a moron or an idiot who's never been to Florida and never talked to none of them folk in Florida. Well, I have and I do. If so, for those who actually knew what the hell was going on and were not in denial because you were desperate for interracial sexual access, just tell the damn truth. Excuse me. I told you they love folk like Trump down there. Hell, they loved him in Cuba. I mean, because when you take a look at Fidel Castro's actual genealogy. Damn! Okay. We've already covered that before, but for those of you who know Fidel Castro's actual genealogy, only a person completely ignorant of the actual facts of the situation would say something so stupid. Very clearly, you don't know anything about him. So Marco Rubio just told you about the man who settled his country. Settled, Marco. Don't you mean colonized? Don't you mean conquered? Don't you mean conquest? Don't you mean that, Marco? If you're going to talk about Cuba, he ain't talking about Fidel Castro. So when he's talking about, he's talking with reverence. Yep. Yeah, when the Spaniards came and raped and settled our little land over here. I mean, he's speaking about the colonization of his land with reverence and with pride. So he's looking at you and he can't understand why it is that you are not equally proud of the colonization and conquest of you. He's cool with it. He has no problem acknowledging it. As a matter of fact, he's not acknowledging it. He's boasting about it, which is what we've been telling you now for decades. This is the real sentiment. So you understand why you look like the class clown talking about they think they're black and they understand racism and white supremacy and they don't like folks like Trump. Okay. So just complete ignorance of the facts on the ground.
My birth arrived, but the roots began here on this continent long before. The men who settled and built the nation of my birth arrived on our shores carrying the memories and the traditions and the Christian faith of their ancestors as a sacred inheritance, an unbreakable link between the old world and the new. We are part of one civilization, Western civilization. We are bound to one another by the deepest bonds that nations could share, forged by centuries of shared history, Christian faith, culture, heritage, language, ancestry, and the sacrifices our forefathers made together for the common civilization to which we have fallen heir. And so this is why we Americans may sometimes come off as a little direct and urgent in our counsel. This is why President Trump demands seriousness and reciprocity from our friends here in Europe. The reason why, my friends, is because we care deeply. We care deeply about your future and ours. And if at times we disagree, our disagreements come from our profound sense of concern about a Europe with which we are connected, not just economically, not just militarily. We are connected spiritually and we are connected culturally. We want Europe to be strong. We believe that Europe must survive because the two great wars of the last century serve for us as history's constant reminder that ultimately our destiny is and will always be intertwined with yours. Because we know
Our destiny is and must be intertwined with yours. And then they start clapping.
With yours. Because we know
I'd like to know how many of you in here heard that sentence and your response was to begin applauding. I'd like to know how many of you in here, you heard that sentence that he's telling you that we need to be intertwined with Europe. I'd like to know how many of you heard that sentence and your emotional and mental response was to begin applauding. Because I would like somebody to explain to me what the applause line is there. I kind of missed it for some reason. I'm just curious, anybody who heard that and felt that that was applaudable, I just would like somebody to give me some clarity on that. So they are here to tell you that their vision of the realignment of the global world order is basically to have a rerun of the 19th and 20th centuries, is what they're telling you. And that they are calling for open, bold-faced, bald-faced, white European colonialism. Dr. Claude Anderson, decades before I even got to this microphone, made a statement. And Dr. John Henry Clark said these things even before that. And then all I did was try to simplify this for the people. What was the goal? What was their goal of the European global expansionist colonial movement? What was the goal? And the goal was simple. Conquer the planet, take the resources, and create once you have won, once you have dominated everything, in the words of Dr. Claude Anderson, let nothing change after that. That the world will be frozen in place after that. We will take all the resources, we will dominate every square inch of the globe, and after that, now we just freeze everything. Let nothing change. Well, Jason, for how long? Forever. The phrase I've given you all, a permanent white aristocracy. That was the goal of the European colonialist movement, of the European colonialist agenda. Conquer everything, dominate everything, and then allow nothing to change. And that till the end of time, there will be a white aristocracy. And everyone else will simply serve it. If you have the misfortune of not being born white, then you will simply serve the white aristocracy. And that will be your lot in life. Like the old British monarchy. If you weren't born the right way, well, this is the best you can expect out of life, and that's just it. You are stuck in your caste, and you're done. And as you can see here, they are articulating that that is exactly what they are looking to maintain. And they felt that their grip on that dominance has been slipping, and now they are insisting that they have got to squeeze and get that vice back around your necks again. When you hear white supremacist scum like Tucker Carlson, when they talk about America and whatnot, every once in a while they are honest to say that this is a country founded by white people for white people. And what that means is that the best of everything and control of it must remain among white people. So they will criticize you or Michelle Obama when she says, I don't feel like an American. And then they'll turn right around and tell you that America is for white people. And that America's true heritage is only for white people. Well, if that's what it's going to be, well, that doesn't include us. And this speech was very, very important to hear because they are articulating pure, unadulterated white supremacy, white hegemony, and white dominance as global policy. This is not just a stump speech. He is saying that this is what it needs to be for global policy. And now, I said this weeks ago when Marco Rubio was leading the charge for Donald Trump to invade Venezuela. And I told you all that Marco Rubio had run for president and it didn't really make very much sense that he would accept being Secretary of State, because I was always trying to figure out here, what is it exactly that they offered him that meant more to him than becoming president? Because that's what he would be giving up. And after they went into Venezuela, I had suspicions, but after they invaded Venezuela, I was like, there it is. And I told you all then, and I'll reiterate it tonight. Marco Rubio signed his pact with the devil that he wants Spaniards to be officially rolled back into whiteness. What? Damn! Damn! Marco Rubio feels that his contribution to the future will be that if he helps Donald Trump with this here, he is going to achieve something that nobody has been able to do in a century here, and he is going to get Spanish people rolled back into whiteness, officially rolled back into whiteness, rolled back into Anglo-ness. Does that now sound familiar to another Spaniard who is now turning the page and horrifying his longtime listeners? Does that, which is why I slow roasted the beginning of the program. Does this sound familiar now? And both of them moving at the same time. You know, this all sounds incredibly familiar and reminiscent of each other. Yes, because that's the goal. That is the goal. That's always been the goal. They do not want to be honorary whites anymore. They want to be full-blooded, fully invested whites. But you see, there are stone walls, and in some cases, actual physical walls. They've been prevented from being acknowledged as white. Every once in a while, there's a Latina female, a white Latina female that, you know, makes them, gets the boys' blood going for them. Raquel Welch. What was her name? Linda Carter. I think Linda Carter came out. Wonder Woman Linda Carter came out and said she was, did she come out and say she was Latina? At least wasn't Anglo. Okay. No, Jessica Alba. We can go down the list. Every once in a while, there's somebody who does that. Every once in a while, there's somebody that they thought was Anglo who's really like, by the way, I'm really not Anglo like that, but, you know. Every once in a while, that happens. And now, they're kind of tired of getting around, sneaking around in the shadows. They're kind of tired of sneaking around in the shadows now. They want their whiteness back. So when you say you are Irish, you're white. When you say you are German, you're white. When you say that you are English, Italian, you're white. Well, just like they rolled the Irish into whiteness and rolled the Italians into whiteness, the Spaniards were in whiteness, got rolled right out of it. In the 21st century, they see their opening. That if they are valuable enough to the realm and are willing to benefit the realm, Marco Rubio sees an opportunity to get them rolled back into whiteness. Need I remind you all, it is government policy. It's not simply a social movement. It is government policy that rolled the Irish and then later the Italians into whiteness. It's government policy that did that. The man on the street can think or say whatever he wants to, but if a Irish person is able to go to the government with his ID that says I'm of Irish descent, but I am also white, his whiteness is honored. Which is the statement I've always said to you all. You see, my Americanness as a black man, as a descendant of the slaves, as part of the foundational black movement, my Americanness is not honored as part of the lineage that goes to the foundation. My Americanness is not honored. I'm constantly told about how my Americanness isn't honored. The Irish person, his Americanness was honored by the government. The Italians were honored. Their whiteness was, and Americanness was honored by the government. For the last 50 years, the people of Spanish descent, their whiteness has not been honored by the government. Not officially. They are now making their push for their whiteness to be honored by the government. And I can see the game plan now very clearly that Marco Rubio is making. I can see the game plan very clearly. At this point right now, Marco Rubio is going to make a Western civilization argument for overthrowing the Cuban government. Now it's all clear. Very hollow, very phony, very thin, completely illegitimate, but that's the argument he's going to make. That these are people of European descent, that these are the heirs of, quote, Western civilization. Now they'll conveniently say that democracy, all of a sudden, democracy is about to become a core of Western civilization again. Remember, they only cite that when it's convenient. Of which communism will be anathema. Why, we can't tolerate a bastion of Western civilization such as Marco Rubio's homeland, Cuba. Why, that's a bastion of Western civilization. So you cannot allow communists to maintain a hold of Western civilization right there 90 miles off the coast of Florida. You can't allow that. This isn't just Cuba. Why, this is a beachhead of Western civilization. We can't tolerate communism dominating this historical bastion of Western civilization. I'm telling you all right now that that is the argument that he will make, and that's going to be the way that he's going to phrase it to justify it. That you have to support your Spanish-speaking children of European descent. You must support your Spanish-speaking children of European descent. You have to do that. And therefore, it is not only right, it is mandatory that we overthrow the Cuban government and restore Western civilization in Cuba. You know that's where this ends, right? You know that's where this goes, right? That's where this is ultimately heading, is justifying overthrowing the Cuban government. How do you do that? Well, he's making the argument now that all good white people everywhere need to acknowledge it. All good white people everywhere need to acknowledge our common ancestry as Europeans, as European descent. And the need to restore, and he just said it, restore and rebuild. Purity tests. Purity tests. There are folks who are sitting at the White House looking to see what they can get. There are folks sitting on the internet in the outhouse looking to see what they can get, and all of them making their move at the same time here. There's a scramble for the ball, and you all know how this goes. When there's a scramble for the ball, people start jumping and dogpiling. And that's what you're witnessing right now. You're witnessing that. A scramble for the ball. Some folks are going to be very, very upset and very, very unhappy. Some of them who are smart are going to be. Others are going to be just taken in. But I'm really doing a nice program here to let you know that this was really going to probably be remembered as the week that white supremacy got completely hoodwinked. This is the week they got completely hoodwinked here. Nobody will even know why they're here after this. If you're tuning into Fuentes, and who would be dumb enough to do that, but if you are, why are you even there? What exactly is it you're supporting? What exactly is it you're trying to get? Why are you even what is it that he's saying anymore that you're on the side of? And let's be clear, it could only go this way also. I mean, let's be clear about that. I said that about Candace Owens since the very beginning. If you think that white supremacists, white males, and white people are going to tune in every week and faithfully, slavishly follow this black female as she attacks any and every white person that she wants to, with impunity, if you think that they are going to just continue doing that indefinitely, you are silly, stupid, and wrong. They are only waiting for a suitable, viable replacement. And as soon as that person sticks their head up, they are immediately going to bust Candace over the head, take the crown off of her, and hand it to them. That's exactly what they're going to do. Nick Fuentes has been very useful to them because he's been able to say the things that they have not been able to say here, but they have had to hold their nose as they keep repeatedly being reminded that he's Mexican. They keep having to hold their noses about that. But now the little groiper is sitting up here telling you that what the new rules of white supremacy are. Nick Fuentes is now telling the white nationalists what the new rules of white supremacy will be. Do you think they're going to accept that and take that and tolerate that? Do you think ultimately that's what they're going to do? You think ultimately they'll be okay with that? You think so? You think they're going to be all right with that? You think that's going to be an issue? You think they're going to not think that's an issue? Because that's going to, I'm telling you right now, that will be. Now, I've been saying it since the beginning. Now, I'm going to go ahead and throw the link to the Zoom in the chat room here. Let me go ahead and throw that up. I have painstakingly gone over the footage here. What I want to do now is I want to replay some of this because I didn't want to break it up too much the first time because there were some key points in here that I wanted to address. So I want to take a moment here to review this to put a spotlight on a few things.
If you enjoyed it, I was hopeful you'd better articulate why a Latin halftime show celebrating their culture was unacceptable for an American sporting event as iconic as the Super Bowl.
I thought you were going to tell me something I already thought. I wanted to hear my opinion reinforced. The Super Bowl is in America. We speak English in America.
Did you all notice that Nick doesn't have the MAGA hat anymore? Now he's got the America First hat. And by the way, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So that freeze frame right there says so much when you think about it. That freeze frame there says so much, doesn't it? That says so much. But in any case, yeah, Nick is here to hijack your movement. And piece by piece, he's knocked down all the former foundations you had, all the former pillars it was propped up on. Piece by piece, he's come along and knocked them all down to say, ultimately, you gonna have to follow me. So everything that was upholding you before, nope, I'm going to systematically walk in and knock those down until all you're left is with me and the new vision of how things are going to be.
Good point. Good point. I've heard this opinion 10,000 times this weekend, but I wanted to hear you say it harder. That's why I hate you. That's why I hate you people. I don't like ugly, stupid freaks. I don't like ugly, stupid freaks. Here's why I don't like you people. Because, so the Super Bowl halftime shows in Spanish. Stop the presses. Call the National Guard. Everybody is saying exactly the same thing.
Now, isn't this the same Nick Fuentes who will sit up here and lambast about, if you're in a town and there are too many Muslims or too many non-Christians, or we can't have Sharia law. Now, all of a sudden, let's be clear, what the issue is the Super Bowl has never been a Spanish event. The Super Bowl is a prime pinnacle representation of American culture to the world. That the Super Bowl has not been communicated as a Spanish-speaking event. So what they're saying is that it has now been redefined as something else. And Nick is telling you language ain't a big deal. You see, what the morons and idiots out there that supported him for so long never bothered to ask themselves is, by the way, Nick, you never quit telling folk about how you're half Mexican. Were there people in your house growing up who spoke Spanish? Damn! See, they never questioned him. They never checked the paperwork. Y'all remember there were some idiots and clowns even here when Nick Fuentes went on Piers Morgan talking about his dad's dead. No, he's not. I didn't argue with him that night, but I'm just like, okay, you're idiots, so let me just keep it moving. But nobody asked anything about that. No one asked, hey, Nick, by the way, were there people speaking Spanish in your house when you were growing up? Because you see, if you saw that, you might feel a little bit different about it. This wouldn't be a shock or a surprise to you at this point. If that was what you saw going on, you'd be like, oh, okay, it all fits now. It all makes sense now. Wouldn't be a surprise anymore if you saw that.
Spanish, it should be in English. The fuck? The country speaks English. The song should be in English. And okay, so we've all heard that. We all sort of agree. Okay, we all kind of agree. We've all heard that. Everybody tune into the show because they want to hear me say it, though. We all sort of agree. We've all heard that. And you want to tune into the show to hear me say it? The show should be in English. I think the show's in Spanish. That's not English. The show should be in English. And why? Why do you want to?
How much more are you going to give up? How much more are you going to give up? If English is no longer the tripwire, then how much more are you going to give up if you are now acknowledging that the English language is no longer the line in the sand? If you are willing to sacrifice it at the Super Bowl, then how do you, if you will not defend it at the Super Bowl, then how do you defend it anywhere? If you cannot defend English at the crown jewel of America's presentation to the world, then how do you defend it anywhere? And why is he suddenly vacillating on this? To which I present to you, he is not suddenly vacillating. He isn't. This was always the game plan. This was always going to be the way it went. This was always the end game. That you get so emotionally invested in him that you can't walk away from the investment when it's very clear that it's changed.
You want to get up on the coffee table? Yeah! Yeah! The show should be in English! I mean, like, why?
Why? Because white supremacy is about dominance. English, your language, you all have never missed an opportunity to remind people that the language is one of the core pillars of identity and civilization. You've never neglected to reinforce that before. Now that you're being told and reminded, all of a sudden the Mexican leader of the Groypers is telling you that that doesn't matter anymore. Why is that such a big deal? So now language is no longer an essential element of culture? Okay.
I don't know. It's just so low IQ. I have been doing this for long enough in my life that I'm just sick of, I'm just tired of it. I'm sick of it. You know, you want me to get, so everybody could get up out of their recliner chair. You can get your fat ass up off the chair. Yeah. Whatever. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about any of it? Nigger Ball brought to you by beer and sports gambling.
Now, this was that right there, what he just said, you notice that just seems a little bit disjointed from everything else he said there before. That was a desperate gamble on his part because he realizes that what he said is not going to go very well with the white nationalists and white supremacists. So now he's got to throw the N-word in there. Now he's got to do that to shore back up his white supremacist credentials because what he just said prior to that was very damning. So now all of a sudden you go to the old standby, okay, let's flog the Negroes right quick. So all of a sudden he has to throw that in there to shore back up his white supremacist credentials. However, that one doesn't work either. As a matter of fact, it is logically fallacious for him to say that because sports is like race horses. The blacks don't control anything. They are just the race horses out there on the track. So you see, the point is to enjoy the entertainment of the race horses. You don't let your race horses take over the track. So as long as you are in a dominant position, you have the luxury. Better the black men out there busting their ankles, busting their ACLs, busting their knees. Tyreek Hill, suffering horrific injuries better the black racehorses out there? What is Nick arguing for? That they should have the white kids out there getting messed up all over the place? When you think about it for a few moments here, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to advocate for that. If somebody's going to get permanently messed up, shouldn't it be the Expendables? That's the reason that it makes sense. What he's saying right now doesn't make any sense. He's arguing against the system working properly. Being a well-paid slave is not power. Now he's arguing against it. In favor of what? We know that Nick doesn't like girls. Now he's telling you that you shouldn't like sports, even if you dominate it. We all know what our issue is with sports here. We don't dominate it. We're making other folks rich and contributing to that, but we don't dominate it. Well, his folk are dominated, and he's telling you shouldn't like that. Probably because Nick doesn't have an athletic bone in his body and never has. So he's kind of biased. All right, let's go ahead and jump over here on Zoom right quick before I go on any further here. I don't want to leave folks waiting on it too long here, so let me go ahead and jump on Zoom. I got Morpheus here on Zoom. What's on your mind, Morpheus?
Hey, how you doing, Jason? Great broadcast. They should have already knew that. I mean, well, he should have already knew that because of his Mexican background. It kept bringing it up, like you said. And also, if you look at the Italians, all the people that graduated to whiteness, they had to give up their Italianness, their Irishness, and Spanish. They don't want to give it up. I mean, some of them will, because I know some Puerto Ricans that do not teach their kids Spanish on purpose, which I picked up over time that, that's them trying to graduate into whiteness. And there's too many, especially Mexicans, that want to hang on to their Spanish culture. And as you know, white supremacy don't see Spanish culture as whiteness. You made a good point with Marco Rubio. I didn't really think about it, but you're correct. And that makes sense about Cubans, because when I learned that the black Cubans don't have a problem with Castro, it's the white Cubans. And when I look more into it, it's because when Castro came in, he tried to make things equal. I didn't know how white supremacist Cuba was before Castro got there. So that makes a lot of sense. And it also makes sense why they kiss up to the Cubans so much, or the Cubans vote Republican. I'm here in Orlando, Florida, so I'm very familiar on how the Cubans vote and how they get down.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dr. John Henry Clark talked about that decades there ago. When you take a look at the island of Hispaniola, you take a look on the one side, you've got the Haitians. On the other side, you got the Dominicans. And take a look at the situation as it happened on the side of the island with the Spaniards versus the side of the island with the Haitians. Over there where the dark-skinned folk were, revolution, uprising, overthrow. Over there on the Spanish side, assimilation. So we've been talking about that for the longest time. So yes, on the continent, on the island of Cuba, same thing there, a color caste system. They got a color caste system there, but like so many of them folks like to play nice and play along with it. It's only when we show up that folk get more discontent. But yeah, it's been a color caste system. It sure has.
And if you look at all of Latin America is like that, when I learned a little bit more about it, like if you look at all the music, reggaeton, all that stuff, if you notice, it's all done by Afro-Latinos. And when I say Afro-Latino, I'm talking about black people that look just like me and you that just happen to speak Spanish. But like here in America, they try to take credit for their accomplishments, and if you look at any Spanish TV, they don't even show the black people there. The Spanish have to come here, like a lot of black people, to America to basically get on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of it there, is that what the message that comes out of imperialism is that you don't own anything. Anything and everything that you do, anything and everything that you create, anything and everything that you establish belongs to the system. It belongs to the empire. It belongs to the establishment. So you can make a music genre, but it is going to be imperative on them to take it over because this belongs to the empire. You are just a subject of the realm. You don't own anything. So the fact that you might be a particularly entertaining or particularly resourceful peasant does not change your peasant status. And therefore, anything of value that you create is already preemptively the complete property of the state. It's already the property of the order. So yes, you can be creative as you want to be, but at the end of the day, anything you make belongs, like it's just like your baby during slavery. That's not your kid. Anything you do or create belongs to me. So when the kid pops out, if I want him, come with me. You only get to keep him if I don't want him. And that includes your intellectual babies.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I don't know if I'm pretty sure you saw the news today with Mexico, what's going on down there. And I know the Mexicans been trying to change their image. They want to be more white. We see how they are in California in the prison system. So, that just reinforces that idea that they're not white. And we know here being in Black Americans, because some of our relatives could pass for white. If you have any lick of black blood in you, you're not white. And even though Spanish try to deny it, they have way too much black blood in them for them to be really accepted.
Latinos are going to get rolled back into whiteness. The white ones are. The Sammy Sosas, no, y'all gonna stay where y'all at. So I know it's gonna be heartbreaking for you, but you gonna stay where your ass at. But the white Latinos, I want you all to understand, they're going to get rolled back in. They're going back in. By necessity. They have to be. They have to be. White replenishment numbers are not where they need to be. And the white establishment is honest with themselves. They're not having children. They're not having children like that. So if you wait, the only way that you could make that become a naturally occurring feature among Anglos again is Anglos will have to suffer a tremendous depletion in standard of living and income. Well, you didn't come this far just to make that happen. Children in large numbers are the investments of the poor or the very rich who got time to sit around and do that. But as far as the middle class, that's not really what happens. So if you're going to shore this up, especially in the immediate term, you can't wait for white folk to be born. You're going to have to find a group to roll in now. You're going to have to just give them their honorary white status now. The only reason that the rest of the Anglos have an issue with the white Latinos is because the white Latinos, in some cases, have not been quite as solid about backing and supporting white supremacy as much as they would like. If the white Latinos actually get more organized and more united in that front, then it becomes a non-issue. Because the truth of the matter is, if you live in Florida, brother, you already know it's not an issue with them in Florida like that. It is not. They told the white supremacist line from George Zimmerman to Donald Trump. They told the white supremacist line. So anybody who's been to Miami and knows the Miami politics, or you in Central Florida and knows the Central Florida politics, that's never been an issue. It's not an issue now. Folks outside of Florida, because they don't know any better, they think there's a conflict. But for those of you who are there, there's not one. Now there is for us. Now there is one for us. When we show up, all of a sudden there's friction. But for these other folk, no, there's not. Because, they vote like the Anglos do. They vote just like the Anglos. So what's going to need to happen is to convince the rest of the society to reassure them, don't worry, the white Latinos are on board. When we roll them over, they're just going to vote for the same thing, for the same cause, for the same culture. They're on board. If you could convince the white population at large that that's what it is, they ain't got no problem with it anymore.
Yeah, let me back you up with the Florida thing with the Latinos. Now, I'm originally from New York. My mom moved me here when I was younger, like 10. I didn't hear the N-word until I moved here to Florida, and it wasn't from a white person. It was from a Spanish person. And even the New York Spanish people, when they come here, they quickly switch over to how to get down here, the Puerto Ricans. Now, in New York, they're cool. But as soon as they come to Florida, they switch out. They turn a whole new leaf. So
well, that's because New York is not as lax as Florida is. So they would not be able to get away with that in New York like they do in Florida. Florida is showing you, with Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida is showing you that. It's a southern state. It's a white supremacist southern state. So when they got there, they realized, oh, it's cool to do that here. It's not as cool to do that in New York. Oh, it's cool to do it here. That's the reason that you see that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I got a lot of shocks when I lived in Tampa. I know you be around over there on I-75. They got that big old Confederate flag just flapping away. So yeah, people be real shocked. That's why like every time they come in, oh, we counted on Florida. I'm on the news, and all the other black people look on the news like, what are you talking about? Like anyone really drive in Florida, this is Trump town. There's a reason why he has Mar-a-Lago here, besides taxes.
Yeah, I mean, everything from Jorge Masvidal and others, people just are ignorant and don't understand these things. For example, I mean, anybody who's been to Florida, whenever they have a holiday or whatever, what was that? Was it Independence Day, a Puerto Rican holiday? There's Puerto Rican flags all over the place. Puerto Rican flags on the cars all over the place. If you mess around and end up in Florida during one of their celebrations, the flags are all over the place. Okay, but then take a look at who they're voting for. Take a look at who they support. They had the chance to support Marco Rubio over Trump, and we saw who they chose. Now that's everything you need to know right there. They had a choice between Trump and Marco Rubio, and they chose Trump. Not Marco Rubio. And take a look at where Rubio is here today. No hard feelings, clearly. So anybody who don't know what the game is, they have been jockeying for their acceptance in that. They have been. When you talk about Venezuela, when you talk about Cuba, they want to be Miss America. They don't want to be Miss Cuba. They don't want to be Miss Venezuela. They want to be Miss America.
Oh, yeah. And if you look at all the construction they do in Florida, especially here in Tampa, like they trying to make all of Florida, like I've been trying to tell people, they're trying to make all of Florida into Miami, basically. They've been doing a lot of construction, and yeah, they definitely down with it. And it's not just Florida. If you get Spanish people's numbers up, you'll see the real them, is what I say.
Well, I mean, look,
happened in California.
They want to get their white card. They want to get their white card. And I've just been telling everybody the same thing here. That the first generation might be struggling like that, but the bottom line is once they got their white card, dude, they start watching Fox News and talking like Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly and Charlie Kirk and start voting Republican. They start doing that. I think a lot of folks have been fooled by places like California and what they think they see in California. I think that's what really messes a lot of folk up is they think they see what's in California and they start making distinctions because they'll sit there and tell you, oh, well, the Mexicans are different than the Cubans. Oh, really? Well, if that's true, then explain Texas to me. If that's true. Well, you take a look, remember we talked about Uvalde, Texas. Okay, Uvalde is practically 90% Latino, but they got an Anglo white mayor. And that's very common. So before you sit up here and tell yourself there's a difference, no, not really. The things they're bucking over are different. Once they get their economics up, dude, I mean, to anybody who's been down to Mexico, you already know gated communities have been a thing down there. That's not something new for them. So once they get their weight up here, that's the first thing they start. Y'all want an education, go to El Paso, Texas. By the way, El Paso is very nice. Freeways, very big, very large, very clear. El Paso, Texas is a very nice place to get down at. And gated community, I mean, we're talking about mostly Latino places. I mean, if you go to El Paso, Texas, do yourself a favor, get off the freeway, go to any gas station. You will be the only person of non-Mexican descent standing there. I promise you. You will be the only one that'll be standing there. Okay, but at the same time, they about getting the bag up. And once they do, they start voting Republican. There's a direct line straight to that. So California's a little bit slower in that regard, but it'll go the same way if that occurs. It'll go just the same way because people don't understand California is still a very white state. So they're very confused by what they see in Los Angeles. That confuses them. But in reality, it's a very white state along with the white supremacist politics that go along with it.
Jason, just one last question. I'll just let you go. I've been noticing a pattern. Anytime black people are seen as progressing, like let's say in music or movies or culturally, have you noticed that right afterwards, the Spanish will say something like, for example, when Sinners came out, you see all these Mexicans like, where are the Spanish representation? Black Panther 2, they miraculously put Spanish people in there. And then, of course, Kendrick Lamar with the Super Bowl. Now they have Bad Bunny. Like, it's like something like, if black people look like we're progressing, I'm not saying that we are, but it just look like it, Spanish people just have to insert themselves. Have you been noticing that, or am I tripping?
Well, I mean, that's not them inserting themselves, though, because who runs the NFL? So the real thing about it is whenever we show up and whatnot, and when I say who runs that, Jay-Z don't run a damn thing. But this is when we open up a lane like that, it's got to be balanced out. Our job is to build the audience, and then they take what we built and then they deliver it somewhere else. Because for those of you who don't know, the NFL is really trying to make a major push outside the United States. Because, I mean, this is big in football, is as big in America as it's going to get. It's not going to get any bigger. And the population in America is, I mean, it's kind of increasing, but kind of stalling out. So they're really trying to get it popular in other places. So they're trying to push into Europe. They've been trying to do that now for 20 years. They don't really have a choice but to keep doing that. They also want to go into Mexico. They think that they got more of an entree there. So this is necessary for their cultural cachet to start showing that they can identify these areas and give them folks something to watch down there. This is very, very important for them. The WWE started doing this, 20 years ago? Which was a very smart move of theirs. Wrestling is very popular in Mexico, but they have their Mexican promotions. What did Vince McMahon do in WWE? They started simulcasting in Spanish. So they have American announcers talking in English, but at the same time, they have Mexicans announcers speaking in Spanish. At the same time on the same programs, Raw and SmackDown. And what do you know? They done bought the Mexican promotions down there. And the WWE can go to Mexico or anywhere else they want to because they're already well known and accepted. They hired a bunch of the luchadors and whatnot. So that worked for WWE. For the NFL, they're still kind of struggling in that regard, but they are determined to get that. So when Kendrick delivers large numbers, and yes, he was watched by more people than Bad Bunny, but Kendrick gets more numbers. Okay, the very next year, strike while the iron's hot. Let's go ahead and introduce something else here. In social media, on your timelines for TikTok and whatnot, I saw the CEO of TikTok from ByteDance. I saw him talking about that. And he was saying how their algorithm worked, and he used a word, stress testing. So that's what he was saying, was that when you come to TikTok and you come to look at something, the feed is programmed to show you that, okay, the next thing we show you will be something slightly adjacent to that. And then we're going to do a stress test. We're going to show you something totally unrelated to the two things that you just saw, to see if we can get you moved in another direction to try out something different. What you're seeing at the halftime show is stress testing. Okay, Kendrick. Oh, y'all like Kendrick? Okay, we will branch out to Mexico. Let's stress test you with something different from Kendrick, adjacent to, as we covered last week, but adjacent to, but different from Kendrick. And let's see if you'll glum on to that. Because the bottom line was Bad Bunny was there to be the talk of the town in Spanish-speaking society. He was there for them to be something for them to talk about in Spanish-speaking society. I don't know how well it worked, but I do know that's what the NFL is trying to do. And the success of a Kendrick Lamar getting an audience, okay, let's see if we can parlay that into other things, because they already got black folk watching. So you don't need more of that. Okay, can we use that to take it and transport it somewhere else? I'll let you have the last word.
Oh, thank you for letting me know that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I could definitely see that because they see how much money soccer is making. You know, soccer is a world sport. So I see the pivot also with the NBA. Like I know the NBA goes to China and stuff like that. But back to the topic at hand. I noticed he said American first a lot, Nick. And I think a lot of white supremacists confuse what he means by American first, because a lot of Spanish, when they say America, they're talking about the Americas, North and South America as a continent. And I think a lot of Spanish wants the Anglos to look at the rest of America as quote unquote American first or America's first.
No, you make a very good point in that regard, which is the thing we've been talking about here. What you're witnessing, and that is the coin that Marco Rubio is offering to them, is offering an American superstate. They're offering them an American superstate. Let's go ahead and walk down the history of it here. Well, first of all, Latin and South America, Central, South America, Latin America, whatever you want to name, that's been a haven for white supremacists since before World War II. I didn't say World War II, I'm before World War II. So you see, they're already agreeable to that cultural mentality to begin with. With the Nazis, they just showed you how deep in it they are. They're like, hey, man, say less. We are already hip to this hardcore white supremacy thing. So when you think about it in those terms, it would be like conquering a whole continent the size of North America without having to militarily subjugate it. Now, that looks pretty good on paper, especially if you're going to fold it into the North American economy. Now you're looking at China differently, because China's branched out about as far as it can go. China is boxed in on all sides. It's boxed in with India, Pakistan, Russia. The only thing they could do is go jump over there and beat up on little old Taiwan. They can do that. But really, there isn't anything major that they can grab. They're making inroads in Africa. It's very obvious what they're doing there. Although I don't think that's going to work out swimmingly for them to just take over the whole continent. I don't think that's going to be able to happen. America, however, North America could do that to South America. And there's a very good argument to be made. And can you imagine South America no longer under indirect North American management, but under direct North American management? Imagine the shoreline and the coastlines of South America. I mean, that would just be a whole new frontier for your American developers and corporations and whatnot. That would be a whole new frontier. You're doubling the size of it there. You wouldn't be even concerned about the land masses of China and Russia anymore. Very large, very huge, but you wouldn't even be worried about that anymore. Now, if you could also add to that Greenland. What?
Yep. And I think that's what the Spanish white supremacists are trying to say. Like, listen, your numbers are getting down. We're already here in the Americas. We're down to go. So let's go in. But I think the white supremacists in America, the Anglos, they just don't like the culture, or they want to keep it English. But I'll let you know, a lot of Spanish are at least able, they will give up their Spanish, talking Spanish, if they can be a part of Anglo white supremacy. I see them here in Florida.
Let me just go ahead and say it to you here right now. If you can get enough Latinas, because white men don't care if she's speaking broken English. He's really only concerned about her allegiance. If Anglo white women are too difficult to deal with because of feminism and whatnot, bro, they'll grab a Latina or an Asian chick in a heartbeat.
Oh, facts.
We already seeing that. They'll grab a Latina or an Asian chick in a heartbeat with no delay. And if that really becomes viable, they'll go ahead and do that. I mean, they think nothing of that. Well, look at Nick Fuentes, speaking of Mexicans, but look at Nick Fuentes. What do they say? Shut up and make me a sandwich. So just think about how seriously language is an obstacle when this man is literally telling you he prefers you shut up. I don't need to hear you talk. For what you need to do for me doesn't require talking. Now, unless you just really take that as a joke, brother, they ain't joking. They mean that. Speak when spoken to, and it better be something I want to hear when you start opening them gums. But other than that, I don't really need your input. Well, then by definition, her language or lack thereof is not that big of an obstacle. Also, when you take a look at chicks like Sofia Vergara or whatever, man, they've liked that.
Oh, yeah.
They've liked that. They love that little accent. So the real thing is, if the accent is just too damn annoying or whatever, that's one thing. But for most of them, if she go to the gym and keep a tapered waist, get her hair done and nails done or whatever, it's like, oh, baby, okay, that's fine. For what I need for you, it don't require a whole bunch of talking. I'll do all the talking. You stand over there and make me look good. I'll do all the talking. And that's literally really what it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's dominance.
Oh yeah, you big facts. But thank you again for letting me come up, Jason. You have a great night. I enjoy your podcast.
Thank you for giving us a call here. Yeah, folks don't understand right there how far the rift goes. So for what they really need from you, it's like, well, I don't need all that jaw jacking, to be totally honest. So when you just draw that to its natural conclusion, well, how offended of a language barrier can he be when he's actually putting up videos by the millions telling you all that actually I don't need you to talk. I prefer you shut up and make me a sandwich. Yeah, I like you better when you don't speak. We done heard enough jaw-jacking from the Anglo-white women. We looking for somebody who talks a lot less, who listens and obeys a lot more and speaks a lot less. You think that's not going to win the internal white supremacist gender war? There's every moron, idiot, and dunderhead out there who wants to talk about gender war among black folk. Man, get the hell up out of here. You ain't seen what the hell's happening over there. They got a true bona fide one going on over there. White women have been in open rebellion. You take a look over here. The incel movement, that's not something black men started. They are in open rebellion over there as white women. They are now the subject of conversation. What are we going to do about these white women who are out of pocket and out of line? And therefore, the passport bros, it was not started by black men. That phrase, passport bros, that's a white male thing, for those of you who didn't know. Like anything else, the black men jumped in and all of a sudden made it hot and made it fashionable. No, that's white men who said, yeah, get your passports. We're already global travelers. We're already expats. Why don't you go ahead and grab something while you're over there in the Philippines? Grab something while you're over there in Thailand. Grab something while you're over there in Brazil. Grab something while you're down in Rio de Janeiro. Grab something. Grab something while you're down in Mexico. So if the white women are acting up too damn much, it's like, okay, it's time to open the board. Let's go ahead and open that board and open that table up, and we ain't going to argue with them anymore. Let them just sit up here and become great big old, butch-looking chicks. Y'all go ahead and do that. And meanwhile, with these newcomers over here, he'll go ahead and start investing in that. It's like, okay, that's the way to go. You all don't want me to go further into this. You don't want me to go further into this. You know what? I'm going to sprinkle you just a little bit. Let me get to you a moment here, Jay, on Zoom. Hang tight, Jay, on Zoom for just a moment here. Let me sprinkle y'all just a little bit. I'm going to sprinkle you just a little bit. On Netflix, there's a cartoon show called Invincible, created by Robert Kirk. He made The Walking Dead. And one of his other comic books that he made called Invincible. It's a show on Netflix. Well, if you're familiar with the story of Invincible, spoiler alert. Okay, Prime, not Netflix. Correction. I'm not subscribed to either one. Okay, it's Prime. Thank you. All right. It's Prime, Jason, not Netflix. It's Prime. I was at Comic-Con. Okay. Prime. So what happened, spoiler alert. So if you don't want it spoiled for you, you need to turn me off for about the next 30 seconds. Spoiler alert. If you don't turn it off now, and that's your ass. But in the story, remember Thrag. Invincible and his father, Omni-Man, defeat Thrag. What does Thrag do right after that? Thrag retreats to an alien world with some, basically they look like big insects. Okay, but his Viltrumite DNA is dominant, so his children, they don't come out looking like bugs, but they do come out purple. The same color as the insect women on the planet that he retreated to. And he basically is sleeping with every insect bug woman on that planet. When he gets done, he's got hundreds and thousands of children. Thousands. Does that sound slightly familiar? Does that sound slightly familiar? We're going to give birth to an army of children. Does that sound familiar? If it doesn't work out here, then we'll go somewhere else and we will give birth to an army of children. I wonder where Robert Kirkman got that idea from. I wonder where Kirkman came up with that concept from. Oh well, moving right along. I'm sure it's nothing. I'm sure it's absolutely nothing. Yeah. In any case, let's go ahead and jump over here on Zoom right quick. Where is Jay here? I'm looking for Jay here on Zoom. I don't see Jay here. I'll give you Jay. Just to make sure we don't have any trolling issues here, folks, I'll give you 5 seconds, Jay. Make sure you're on Zoom. Make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on for me, just so we don't have any trolling issues. I can give you 3 more seconds here, Jay, just to make sure we don't have any trolling issues. All right, I can give you 2 more seconds here, Jay, just to make sure we don't have any trolling issues. Then we're going to have to go ahead and go here. All right, Jay. Jay is having either technical issues or mental emotional issues, so we'll let you go ahead and take the weekend off so you can go ahead and take a look at that there again. Yeah, folks, like I say, look, the situation's gotten critical. The situation's gotten critical. The situation's gotten desperate, man. They ain't playing around no more. The situation has gotten critical and desperate. And other folks out there making their moves, so I really probably should have retitled tonight's program about, rolling back into whiteness. And that's really the subtext of this. Because you see, it's not as easy. It is not as easy for other people. It's not as easy for us as it is for other people to do this, because I also posted on this right here, never lacking. I mean, I guess Diamond and Silk were not available.
Oh, please.
I guess Diamond and Silk were not available. So Donald Trump has a Black History Month event while he is sitting up here tearing down slavery memorials and attempting to whitewash white supremacy and whitewash slavery. He found himself a rotund older Black female to sit there, and I mean they're never at a shortage of them, folks. There's always one gonna do that. And embarrassingly enough, this was the best she could say for him.
I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be standing up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off of him. And Grandma said it.
I can just hear Trump now. You're a great negress. You're doing a great job there. That was perfect, Mammy. That was perfect. You remind me of my old housekeeper when I was a kid in Brooklyn. You remind me of my old housekeeper. She was a fine old doting lady too. Okay. Ma'am, that's the best you can do. Okay, if he's not a racist, why do you have to jump up and say he's not one? If he's not one, that would just be self-evident. If you have to make a point of your acceptance speech to say, by the way, and stop calling him racist, his actions don't say that on his own. That's not just self-evident. That's not just self-evident. Now, her name is Forlesia Cook. Forlesia Cook, not to be confused with Foreclosure Cook, tragically lost her grandson to violence in Washington, D.C. Now, don't you all understand that the Fox News audience would be saying that her grandson was a thug and probably a gangbanger, and this is what he gets for you, and what's wrong with black culture, and they would not be applauding any of this stuff right here. That wouldn't be happening. That wouldn't be happening at all. Not at all. But not to be outdone. Oh, man. Here we go, y'all. All they could do was bring Leo Terrell up there. You know you in trouble when all you got's Leo Terrell. Looking like a broke Thanos. What? I mean, that's when all you got is Leo Terrell, boy. You know you in trouble. I mean, he's been around for decades, y'all. He's coon on call. Damn! Leo Terrell is the coon on call. Just when you ain't got nobody else and you got very, very few of them, it's just Leo is on speed dial. It's just he's just a coon on call. Whenever they need somebody to come up and make an ass of themselves, because Herman Cain died. So yeah, just the coon on call was there.
We are living under the administration of the greatest president in our lifetime. And we have the hottest country in our lifetime.
Okay, black people don't even talk like that. We don't even talk like that. This is weird. This is like being at a turning point event. This is just weird. We don't even speak this way. We have the hottest country. We don't even talk like that. All right. This is what happens when you have your hand-picked Negroes by the white supremacists. This is what happens when they choose who speaks. It all just comes out real weird.
I want to make sure the mainstream media knows this, because you represent the people who basically counter what the mainstream media has done. President Trump was the president who fully funded historically black colleges and universities.
Well, don't forget to remind people that funded is a relative term. Every president claims that they're fully funding it. Why don't you go ahead and say about how he's whitewashing the history books and embracing slavery and taking down slavery monuments and taking away at the Smithsonian, removing black slavery monuments and paintings at the Smithsonian and mentions about slavery and erasing vote. Don't forget that, Leo Terrell. Are you going to mention that part there, or are you going to leave that part out, Leo?
President Trump took the lead and performed criminal justice reform. President Trump made sure that we had opportunity zones. Let me close by saying this. This country is at a crossroads, and we have the right president at the right time. And if you want school choice, like I know you do, President Trump wants it. If you want a law and order society and secure border, President Trump wants that. And more importantly, I say this because this is the greatest country on the planet. American citizens should decide American election. Vote for the SAVE Act.
Nigga, please.
Okay. Let me explain to you what the problem is with recruiting and bringing in a Leo Terrell or a Coleman Cruz or a Candace Owens. Here's the problem. And ironically enough, Nick Fuentes told everybody what the problem was with that. They have no influence among black people. Their sole job is to roll black people into the Anglo-white supremacist agenda. The point of a Leo Terrell, the only reason you're around is that you're supposed to be the Negro whisperer who rolls the black politic into the white Anglo-white supremacist project. You're supposed to get us to do what they got Marco Rubio over there doing. That's the only reason you're allowed in the room. Absent that, you serve no purpose. Well, the problem here is that Leo Terrell is completely incompetent and incapable of even performing something like that, because it ain't gonna happen because we ain't with it. So Leo has no black support. He has no black backing. You can't play his words and black folks say anything. Leo Terrell only can speak to white audiences. He has no black support. None. The reason that Byron Donalds is panicking right now is because it looks like he's going to have to split the white vote with that fishback racist dude. You're going to have to split the white vote with him. Well, if it comes down to splitting the white vote with him, oh man, those are bad odds. You need some black folk to break and come support you. Because if it becomes a fight over who's going to get the white vote, ask Marco Rubio how that went. So poor little Whole little tip. Leo Terrell sat up here and he showed up at the White House. It's like if Trump answered his phone call there, and the only place that thought he had any influence was Fox News. And it's like we've been looking at Leo now for over 20 years, and Leo has just as much influence among black folk today as he had 20 years ago. Poor little Tink. He's got just as much influence today as he did then, which is to say, none. This is embarrassing. This is mortifying. This is just maximum cringe. And it shows how incompetent Trump and his side are. They're just living on, the only reason they can get elected is if black folk don't show up. If we are just disenchanted and we don't show up, that's the only way they can win anything. And this is a squandered opportunity. This is a squandered opportunity. They should be using their time right now to get the foundational black community behind them solidly. They should be using this right now as their opportunity to do that. And instead, they're wasting it on cheap party city get-togethers like this. Rather than coming to us with a black agenda and discussing tangibles, instead of talking about fully funding black society, damn fully funding a HBCU, and I said that.
And deal with it, nigga.
We don't need to fully fund any HBCUs. You talk about the wealth gap. Let me remind y'all one more damn time. The people in America who most epitomize the wealth gap didn't go to college or did not graduate. Ain't that right? Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs. Oh, well, y'all get the Sam Altman. Y'all get the point. The richest people in the world, even the ones who went to college, they dropped out. So the college did not make them the richest people in the damn world. They are fully holding up the economy right now with their bloated data centers. No college degree required. Yeah, we want some of that. That part right there. On account of the fact we are more legitimate and been here longer and you've been depriving us. No, what you gave them, yeah, we want that right there. I want a state to get behind a black enterprise the way that California got behind one man, Elon Musk. Elon Musk always got tapped in with the government. The state of California, Elon Musk did not build out that charging network. And when you go to watch documentaries online about Tesla, they all sit up and lie. They talk about Tesla built out its charging network. That's a damn lie. The state of California built it out. The state of California was doing that. Hell, I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor of California talking about the need to build out an electric charging network. So you see, what prevented electric cars from being viable was that, well, there wasn't a network of chargers to charge them up with. Cars have gas stations everywhere, but electric cars, you could only, if you have to charge it at home, that means you can only go about 100 or 200 miles from home, and then you got to go back and recharge. So the thing that was preventing mass adoption was the lack of a charging network. Okay, well, Tesla didn't build that. California did. And that was all for the benefit of one company, a state that conspired at the federal level. It was tax cuts. I mean, it was those EV tax credits. But California was the state that took a hold of that first. So we don't get to the feds if we don't really get California on board like that. California got behind one man. Now, when black folks show up, here's your RICO charge. Y'all niggas need to stop talking about the handout. Y'all need to stop talking about reparations. Oh, shut up for a minute here. Elon's on the phone. Hey, what's up, Elon? Oh, you need about 500, 600 billion. Don't worry, we got that for you. Yeah, we just got some niggas over here begging. But yeah, you're actually productive here. Let me go ahead and give you five. You're so productive, I need to give you $500 or $600 billion. That's how productive you are. Yeah, you're doing such a great job that you need a government handout for your private business. Yeah. And then you go over there to North Carolina and they're giving over $1 billion to Scout Motors, telling you that you want a handout, but hey, Scout Motors, you need a couple $1 billion? We got you. Yeah, we want that right there. Yeah, we want the Scout treatment. We want the Tesla treatment. That right there. What you did for Tesla and what you're doing for, what you are still doing for Tesla and what you're doing for Scout right now. Yeah, we want that. No. Move that check from Scout now. Let me get that right. Let me get that. I said, cut that check. I see a big one right there. Let me get that right quick. Yeah, what you're doing for them. Yeah, slide that on over here. We'll take it from here. And by the way, it won't cost us $1 billion either. What? Oh yeah, one more thing. We gonna make it pop off and it won't cost us $1 billion, though I will take that $1 billion. You always gotta make sure you got enough capital. But by the way, for us to make it pop, we're not going to have $1 billion of waste either. It won't cost us $1 billion to get things popping. And you know it. Just like we did in the music industry, just like we did in the movie industry, just like we did in professional sports. Yeah, it won't cost us $1 billion to get that going. We can go toe to toe against y'all at 1/10 of that budget, which is why you don't want us to have anything, because you know if you all being properly funded is they get $1 billion and then right after that the CEO goes off and buys a beach house and whatnot and only half the damn money gets spent on the project. You know full well if we were fully funded, we'd be kicking your asses with all 4 damn feet at 1/10 of that amount. And you know it. And that would expose all the waste, fraud, and abuse you all been committing. So for us to be fully funded, it's like, oh, hell no. They watch our restaurants. For us to be fully funded does not require what the hell they need. They don't want to have a 1-to-1 comparison of that, which is why they fighting tooth and toenail to make sure they don't got it. Okay, but they're taking your taxpayer dollars and handing it to Elon Musk and BMW and Volvo and Volkswagen. Nah, you want to convince me of something? You wasting time right now and losing opportunities. You need to slide that money to us. That would have made a difference. That would have made a difference for your futures. Instead, oh well, you're just going to go ahead and lose out here. So if you want to do dumb things, I mean, you can do that. You can do that, but just remember, when them folk come back for you, Trump, you had an opportunity to change the board. You could have changed the board there. You could have changed what it looked like. You could have changed what people were seeing. You could have changed how it was going. You had an opportunity to do that. Okay. Let me go ahead and jump on Zoom right quick here. We got one brother over here on Zoom for me. Okay, I think they got the Zimbabwe broadband here going. One brother, you're supposed to be on Zoom here. I'll give you 5 seconds here. All right, there you go. Unmute yourself. All right, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. B1, and good evening, sir. Thank you for the broadcast and the excellent points tonight. I wanted to ask you your thoughts about the first individual you brought up here, Nick Fuentes. He made some interesting comments directly towards his base, and he pointed out how he tried to clean it up with the black deflection, of course. But I wanted to ask you, do you think he has, outside of the needing to deflect, does he have any awareness of what he's doing, or does this come off to you as more like reactive and brash, which is nothing new for him?
Yeah, I mean, look, brother, there is no plan. He doesn't think about things. He just says things. History is replete with these individuals. I want you all to understand something about power. And I know I usually don't do this on this channel over here, but I want you to understand something about power. History is not controlled or moved by the smartest, the most resourceful, certainly not by the most moral and capable. That's not who has moved history. Historical events have been moved by the audacious. Audacity does not require knowledge, mastery. It does require certainty. A person needs to be certain, even if they're totally wrong. He thinks he's right. But audacity is what has moved history. What we found with what the Dunning-Kruger study found and basically established is that most people are not confident of themselves. And so they would rather be confident going in the wrong direction with a group than to be unconfident standing alone. And the audacious know how to take advantage of that. They know that if they're overbearing enough, that pretty much gets everybody to follow them. If for no other reason than, well, he must be right. Look how confident he is. What he's saying must be correct. Look at the conviction with which he speaks it. The black church has become a testament to that. So Nick Fuentes is just the latest in a very long line of people throughout the centuries who've done that. He is audacious. Richard Spencer before him, same thing. So these guys are willing to go way overboard to be seen, way overboard to dominate the conversation. They have no problem setting themselves on fire. Donald Trump is the exact same way. In the process, what you end up doing is sucking all the oxygen out of the room. So even if there are better and smarter people, nobody can hear them because your audacity is drowning them out. You've created such a spectacle that everybody is, instead of listening to this smart person over here speak, they would all prefer to watch you sit over there and burn. And that's what Nick Fuentes does. The problem what you saw with Nick Fuentes in these videos here is that, about talking about the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny, is that this is very clearly a person who all he can say is he doesn't have any ideas. He doesn't know what to do. So in the absence of, he doesn't know anything about sports. He knows he really knows that he should be supporting it, but he doesn't know enough about it to do so. So since this is not something that he is personally able to identify with, he tells you it's stupid. He tells you it's dumb, even though it's made white folk empowered and rich. He's too lame to be able to participate. So all he can really do is tell you, well, this is no good, because he can't do anything with it. That's a guy who's out of ideas. He's out of ideas. I have a problem with professional sports and whatnot. I'm not telling black men they shouldn't be there. What I'm saying is that these are missed opportunities. You should not get a contract for $25 million and not be paying for something somewhere else. I see Ice Cube in the Big Three. I'm like, how the hell are you guys getting $25 million, $50 million, $100 million, $200 million contracts? Damn! And I'm not seeing $10 million worth of productivity and innovation. That is a damn character defect. That's a missed opportunity. Yeah, it's your money, but it's also your fault. But that's from my perspective over here. Nick's not supposed to be saying stuff like this. These are white men empowering themselves. These are tools to be able to do that. You're not supposed to be saying anything like that. So what it's showing you is that if you have an audacious personality in the room, he can suck all the oxygen out of the room, even if everything he's saying is wrong. Even if it's very clear that he doesn't have an idea anymore. Even if he's just sitting up rambling, he can dominate the room. Because most other people, for example, this is a critical key skill set to have. The ability to speak articulately without stumbling over your words. Did you notice what I didn't say? I didn't say the ability to speak with a coherent thought. Did you notice I didn't say that? I said the ability to speak and continue speaking in a clear, articulate way. It doesn't matter if what you're saying is nonsense. Ain't that right, Alex Jones? Alex is complete babble. He's been doing it for decades, but he speaks it articulately and with conviction. And what do you know? A couple decades later, he's still at it. So it's just another example of that. It's the reason that Kamala Harris did not succeed. Kamala Harris is the opposite of that. She can be articulate, but she stumbles and bumbles. Now, what's the first thing you feel when she starts doing that? Well, you don't sound very confident. You don't sound like you know what you're talking about. And even if you do, you don't sound like you're very confident of it. So therefore, audacity is necessary to convey conviction. Because remember, conviction is contagious. If the leader is confident, and if he can effectively communicate that to everybody else, now they are equally confident. Hell, a lot of them are even more confident. They crash outs. Crash outs are people that the leader has made more confident than he is. They believe in it more than him. They're running into bullets. He's running at the front line. They ran straight past him, shot by him like the Flash. They want to take the bullets before he does. So that's what audacity does. It galvanizes people because opinions are common, but confidence is rare. That's the issue. And people keep confusing that. Opinions are common, not confidence. Confidence is rare. Nick Fuentes is willing to be confident enough to put himself out there and take, whatever comes with it to be able to do that. Most people aren't. They're afraid of looking stupid. They know things, but they're not really confident about what they know, which is what Dunning-Kruger determined. That the smartest people in the room, yeah, they were smart, but they weren't confident about it. So they could very easily be confronted and then start backing down because in reality, they're not confident. Even though they're right, even though they're correct, even though they're smarter. And the dumber people in the room, they don't know how dumb they are, which is what Dunning-Kruger really shows that. Why can't you talk to dumb people? Because dumb people don't realize how dumb they actually are, which is why they're confident. He has no clue how stupid he actually is. Smart people are smart enough to question how correct they are. Dumb people are not. So they latch on to something with conviction. Ain't that right, Grandma, up there talking to Trump? So Nick Fuentes goes in that category of individuals who've understood how they can use audacity. And his job is to talk to you, filibuster. You don't get to ask questions. He makes sure he's going to filibuster the whole time. And everything is about how confident he is. Everything is about you have to get his approval, which is what he said in the videos. You heard it. I'm above that. I'm above that. I'm beyond that. I don't do that right there. You low IQ people there. What is he telling you? I'm smarter than that. I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. Okay. It's not self-evident. You have to tell me you are. It's not simply evident speaking to you. That doesn't establish it. You have to tell me you are. You can't prove it with your arguments. You have to tell me. Those folk who paid those super chats to ask those questions, he didn't actually debunk their questions. You're just stupid and dumb. I hate you people. Okay, well, okay, that's a complaint, but that's not an argument. That's a complaint, yeah. That's nagging, sure. What it isn't is an argument. He's learned how to use that. He's learned how to use it.
And to that point, do you think there's any chance of this being irreparable for him? And if not, do we know what event to look out for in terms of him and his interaction with his base like this? What would be?
The folks who are following him are far too invested in him. So as a singular event, no, this is not going to do anything as a singular event. By itself, in isolation, in a vacuum, this doesn't actually do anything. I'm sorry. This is not going to be a takedown of him. However, what it will be is something that goes in the vault. He's upset a lot of folks with what he said. Let's be very, very clear about that. The true believers, they heard this. And they're going to be, just because they're not Nick Fuentes, remember, there's always somebody is sitting in the wings who wants to usurp your authority. We covered that last night. There's always somebody who's like, we're following Nick and Nick's cool, but in reality, I would be better. And so when you do things like that, they record this to say, okay, eventually I'm going to have an opening. And it's like the feds. You don't take somebody down because they said something off brand one time. What you do is you sit back and start collecting a record of it. That's why Ben Shapiro is no longer viable today. He's had a track record of being anti-America first, and now everybody just has to play his greatest hits to the point that he goes to Turning Point and CPAC or whatever, and he's a damn pariah now. That didn't happen in 1 year. That's been the result of a decade of just collecting what he's been saying. So if you're going to take somebody down, especially if somebody's the leader, you can't take him down for just one off-brand, off-color day. That's not going to do it. Not unless he just says something like, F white people or something. Now, that would have done it. But for this right here, no, not by itself. Primarily because the folks who marched out here with him are so they've given up so much to come this far. You're going to need something major. It can't be debatable. It can't be open to interpretation. It's going to have to be something ground shaking, ground swelling. And if he doesn't refute white people, then you're going to have to start collecting a bunch of little infractions. This was an infraction, but it's only one. And remember, once is an incident. Twice is a trend. 3 times is a pattern. And I assure you, there are folks out there among the groypers who are documenting these things and like, okay, there you go again. Because we don't need no Mexicans running what we're doing anyway. So you can't go at him like this right here because the general public, remember, he's most charismatic and most audacious. So the masses will not just get behind you simply because you say he ain't good enough. Why are we following this Mexican? So if you're going to take him down, you're going to need that. That's the argument you'll make at the end. Hey, we shouldn't follow this Mexican because he ain't solid. Take a look at all this stuff he said. He hasn't said enough yet for you to make that video. He hasn't done enough yet for you to make that case. You're going to have a bunch of those things right there, and then there will be another incident, something that gets everybody's attention, and that's when you're going to get him. But right now, you got to build your case, which is what is currently going on now. They're going to build their case.
And also moving to Rubio, who you obviously mentioned earlier as well, he did quite the serenading of Europe, it looked like, at that get-together. And the point you made earlier in the broadcast about Americanness and it being respected as Black people reminds me of a classic question from Race War, asking if you as a Black Southerner can or would share pride for the South and the Confederate monuments. And clearly the answer is there's a difference there. But what I wanted to ask you with Rubio was all this work that he did trying to get Hispanics rolled back up into whiteness, given the replacement rate that whites have already been going through, like you mentioned, do you think this would have happened anyway, or was his work here necessary to kind of push this forward?
I mean, look, this was the plan the whole time. I mean, Trump's been doing that behind the scenes. That's what's been going on. He's been doing that. So he's been communicating with folks down there, man. He's been communicating with them. So, look, if you're in New York, you want to make sure you're mobbed up. You got some Jewish folk that you can talk to there, so you can get that. If you're going to be in Florida, and he is, you're going to have to get mobbed up with the Cubans. And Trump has been doing that. I mean, he's a hellacious networker. I bet you the phone book and his contact list in his phone is voluminous. It's got to be. He tries to know as many people as he can. And it's very viable and very valuable to do that. But Marco Rubio is part of the plan. And this happened before, folks. This is how politics happens. This is how politics works. The way that politics works is that you tell people, they got the WWE thing going, but ultimately folks are going to have to come down to reality here. Remember when Hillary Clinton wanted to run? 2008, remember? Okay, Hillary Clinton wants to run against Barack Obama. We saw how that went. And remember, they had to go ahead and him and her have a little meetup before she would endorse him. Well, we all knew what the hell that was going to be. So, okay, you got to get the hell out the way. And that Barack Obama would endorse her in 2016. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what occurred. Well, that's what you're seeing with Marco Rubio. That's exactly what happened here. Marco, if you want to have anything, you're going to have to get on board with this. I don't believe that Marco Rubio was there. I don't believe that's where he's at. I don't think that's where he's at. I think that Marco Rubio has given up on that to the most part. Maybe he'll instead think about running for governor of Florida at some point. He can't do it right now, but I think that he's been contracted by them because he sees himself as in a unique position to overturn these things. Please understand, the Cubans are as hardcore about reclaiming Cuba as the Palestinians are about Palestine. They are not letting this go. They're not. And they understand that every year that goes by, their chances of reversing this go down. So somebody's going to have to jump out the window and do something really heavy. Somebody going to have to do that. In the chat room, I'm going to put the Zoom back up here for just one person who's been instructed to call in. Only one person, nobody else. Just one person's been instructed to call in here. So I'm going to put the Zoom back up long enough for them to do that, or else we'll go ahead and ban them. But certainly they have questions. They can just speak directly to the source. But in Marco Rubio's case, I was wondering what it was they bought him off with. Because I was like, this doesn't make any sense if he still wants to be viable for president or anything else. What are you doing this for, Marco? What did they promise you? When I saw them go into Venezuela, because I didn't believe about that until I saw that they did it. I'm like, yeah, we can't have no half measures because this is going to go down bad everywhere. This is going to go down bad internationally. America's going to lose a lot of its credibility. The Russians are going to be like, oh, y'all upset about us in Ukraine? Really? Oh, okay. Yeah, y'all better get off our ass. We do as we please. So you're about to lose that moral standing ground. What did they promise you that was worth that, Marco? They promised them Cuba. Would you like to have the opportunity to retake your homeland? Because Obama's not going to do it. And Biden's not going to do it either. And this will be messy, and this will be ugly, and this will be disreputable, and it'll probably be the end of your political career no matter which way you go, but at least you'll have Cuba back. And to them, Marco Rubio would be Jesus Christ walking if in Florida, if he does that. I need y'all to understand that. Marco Rubio would be a domestic hero. They would be building statues to him in Florida and Cuba, but they would be building statues to Marco Rubio in Florida if they knock off the government in Cuba. Just please understand that. Just like in El Paso, Texas, they got that statue at the airport. In the Dominican Republic, they got them statues and the white men at the airport. Marco Rubio, they'll be having statues of him in Florida. He would be a deity walking if he can pull that off. And that's real talk. Now, I don't know if they've made their decision that they gonna do it yet. All I'm saying is Venezuela is definitely showing you it's on the menu. I don't know if you're going to get served, but I do know you're on the menu. So I wonder what they bought him off with. Now we know. Time will tell if they go forward with it. But the odds are better now than it was before. Because it's like, dude, it's going to be messy no matter what we do. I hate to keep referencing Game of Thrones, but what did Jaime Lannister say to Olenna Tyrell? She's a beast. Your sister's a beast, an animal. You know, she's terrible, monstrous. He said she might be a monster to you, but when people are living happily in the world in which she built, do you think they're really going to wring their hands about how she built it? So when they knock off the Cuban government, when all the dust settles, and the international community be screaming and crying and whatnot, but when the Cubans are down there dancing in the streets and talking about how much they love it, do you think anybody's going to be giving us grief over how we did it? Take a look at just how quickly they've moved on with Venezuela. What? Now, the American military ain't tried to move in yet. That's the only reason why things aren't on fire down there just yet. Because the American military ain't tried to move in and say, okay, these going to be the rules. But in Cuba, now, brother, look here. If they knock off the old Castro regime, there are literally thousands of former soldiers, politicians, community leaders, every damn thing else they'll have a big ass Carnival cruise boat taking them all back down there, and they'll be able to take up right where they left off at. And Marco will be a prince for doing it. So that's what's in the cards for him, one way or the other.
Well, I'll leave with this comment to the point you brought about the Invincibles. I don't even watch that many Marvel movies like that, but still somehow that same concept of someone spreading the seed across the galaxy was in Guardians of the Galaxy with a Zeus-like father who's mating with all these different species, having all these different children, and yet it's another fictional story that has the same concept in it, just coincidentally. So,
yeah, you notice they don't make stories like that for black men. Now, in the comic books, I don't want to get too wonky here, but in the comic books, y'all, Wakanda has an intergalactic empire. For those of you who didn't know, and just you don't keep up with it, that's fine. Wakanda isn't Earth-based anymore in Marvel Comics. I mean, they are. They're still a country in Africa, but Wakanda actually has, in the comic books, they have an intergalactic empire now. I don't know if the movies call it to that, but in the comic books, they do. Yeah, ain't nobody talking about, T'Challa sitting up here, loading up the gals on Mars and Venus and stuff. Nobody's written that story yet. He's going to be faithfully married to Storm. Meanwhile, Zeus is over here getting it in. So, yeah, I just couldn't help but notice when they give those kind of stories, could you imagine having a black man be the person running around doing that? It's like, are you Luke Cage sitting up here making all these mulatto cheering all over the place? Oh, you think that's going to get a budget? You think that film's going to get a budget? I'm skeptical. I don't think that film's going to get a budget right there. I don't think so. Because y'all know, can you imagine the optics of that? He's sitting on the damn throne. He got a bunch of white women and Asians. And it's like Black Dynamite. Hey, you going to wake the other hoes. Be quiet. It's like, I don't see that one happening. I am very skeptical that film gonna get a budget. I just think the optics. I just think the optics alone is gonna be bad. I don't see that happening. Just on one hand, Luke Cage. On the other hand, Black Falcon. Okay, no man. On one hand, Luke Cage. On the other hand, Black Panther. It's okay. Who can impregnate the most damn women across the Milky Way? No. Now for the white dudes, it's just like, do what you do. You go ahead, but no, they don't promote black folk doing that. Not at all.
For our characters, they get killed off, can't come back, even though they're not supposed to actually die, but they somehow mysteriously die anyway.
No, they don't get no kids. They don't get any children. Luke Cage can have a child with what's her name, Jessica Jones, but she runs off with the baby. So it's like, okay, Luke Cage, you get to be an absentee father, but you don't get to do nothing else. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Yeah, y'all, it's just when we show up, the story changes. We don't get to do none of that. When we show up, the story changes. Your sexuality does not get to set the tone for nothing. You don't get to do that. Now, Thrag over here, Thrag can sit up here and impregnate a whole damn planet. He can have a whole bunch of bug women with their bellies full and waiting to give birth. So Thrag can do that, but Luke Cage, now you gotta take this vow of celibacy right quick. Hey, Black Panther now, just hey, just think about the cheering now. We're a PG channel here. Just you don't want folk, y'all got a stereotypical reputation. You don't want that. We don't want that happening, do we? Okay, well, just remember now. I don't think Falcon even got anybody. Falcon just runs around with Captain America and Bucky. What? Yeah, Falcon just runs around with Captain America and Bucky. It's like, okay, this nigga ain't got no romantic life. He hangs out with y'all all day. Yeah, he ain't got time for the females. He's waiting for Captain America to give him a call. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't go. Like Steve Urkel is a superhero. I can't go on a date with you. Captain America might call me. You know, Tony Stark and the Avengers might give me a call, so I can't really hang out with you. Sorry, ma'am. Oh, wait a minute, my phone's ringing. I think my phone's ringing. I gotta go. He flies off. Okay, so Sam Wilson flies off, and then right up behind her, here come Tony Stark in his R8. I noticed that, right? You saw Falcon? Yeah, I mean, he always does that. You know, he's a loyal guy right there, but not really for the women. Hey, would you like to come see my mansion in Malibu? So Falcon flies off to go see what Captain America wants 24 hours a day. But meanwhile, Tony Stark, he needs to be driving a damn Sprinter van for all the women he picks up. So I just couldn't help but notice that. Luke Cage, okay, you're a felon. You can have Rosario Dawson, which, by the way, a man could do a hell of a lot worse. Don't get me wrong. You can have Rosario Dawson, but meanwhile, Tony Stark, he got to load him up. Star-Lord has to load him up. Thor has to load him up. It's like, okay. You don't get to be a black man and have a love triangle. What? No. Black men don't get to have a love triangle, much less populate a planet. You don't get to do that. You're a black man, you got one chick over here. That's it. You and her better make it work, because this is the only one you gonna get. White men get to have love triangles. We don't get to do that. We get a love point. We don't even get a love line. We don't even get 2 points. You got this love dot. This is the one you get right here. There will be no triangle. It's you and her. Dot. Now try to make a movie out of that. But in any case here, yeah, y'all, they are spazzing out. They're going nuts. They're losing their minds. White supremacy is imploding on itself as I said it would. They have created a circular firing squad just the way I said they would. Just the way I said that they would, and it's only going to exacerbate. Anybody who thought that the white supremacist civil war was over, you are silly, stupid, now just dead wrong. Nick Fuentes is burning the house down from the inside. What's that saying? They have the calls coming from inside the house. Well, Nick Fuentes is burning it down from inside the house. So, yeah. His followers will eventually start becoming disaffected. So, yeah, there's that. And we will be here to document every minute of it. Best believe that. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. Before I do, I want to thank everyone who's contributed to tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out here to Kenneth. Thank you very much for your support tonight. We appreciate that. To Keenan, my man, Mr. Richburg, as always, thank you very much for your support tonight. We appreciate that. And to everyone who has contributed to tonight's program, we appreciate that here as well. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend, holidays, some days in between. Click that subscribe button and that notification bell. Join us each and every time that we are here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work at blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program, live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.